So it looks like Riley Gaines has accepted Simone Biles' apology, not for the overall message when it comes to women in so men and women's sports, but for the personal attacks, right? Because if you look at Riley Gaines, new video that came out on TikTok, her title says, "I accept her apology for the personal attacks, but do the millions of little girls Simone let down," right? That's a good question. But from the comments that I've looked at previous videos, there's a lot of people that, obviously don't accept her apology. So let's listen to what Riley Gaines has to say, then I'll share my thoughts.
Or maybe her PR team have officially issued an apology. Simone Biles, or maybe her PR team have officially issued an apology to me. This is the tweet she put out. I'm not going to read it all, so you can pause to read, but let's go through the important parts. She says here she's always believed competitive equity and inclusivity are essential in sport. Here's my take on this. Sports are inclusive by nature because everyone can do them and everyone should play sports, in my opinion. Competition, on the other hand, by definition, is exclusive. So the idea of competitive equity is nonsensical and a total oxymoron. Here's where she apologizes. She says she was frustrated, things got heated, and it didn't help her to get personal with me. She then says these are complicated issues, which I disagree with. I would say actually it's a very simple issue with a very simple solution. She says here she wasn't advocating for policies that compromise fairness in women's sports, but she criticized the people advocating for fairness in women's sports. So if she wasn't advocating for policies that compromise fairness in women's sports, then what were you advocating for? Silence? Appeasement? For girls to just shut up and take it so long as a boy's feelings are validated? She goes on to say that highlighting these stories, or in my case, posting about them on X, are too personal and harmful. It is the boys who are publicly humiliating the girls. To suggest that women and girls must be quiet or ignore the boy that is publicly humiliating them is wrong. You cannot have empathy and compassion for the girls if you are ignoring the boy that is harming and humiliating them. She wraps it up by saying it's the sports organization's responsibility to come up with rules to support inclusion while maintaining fairness. And I do agree with her that our leaders need to be held accountable. Hence why I'm suing the NCAA. Hence why I was at the White House for Donald Trump's signing of his executive order regarding this issue. All of this to say, I accept Simone's apology. I think it's a big win. I don't think we would have seen this even just a year ago, 2 years ago. So I accept the apology. And secondly, this response seems to insinuate that Simone does want fairness in women's sports. It's unclear if we have the same definition of what fairness means, but nonetheless, I welcome Simone Biles to join the fight for fairness and to support a future where female athletes, where little girls can dream and succeed and achieve just like Simone Biles had the chance to do. Simone Biles, or maybe her...
So you heard that, right? So, I mean, obviously she accepts the apology. Now, some of you may agree with that or you may not. However, I mean, the most important thing that matters is that, obviously Riley Gaines is, her thoughts on that. Because look she pretty much, said a lot of things that I said. And it's just crazy because like when you listen to, Simone Biles, right? She talks about she's looking for fairness when it comes to, female sports. Yet she's attacking the very person that's literally the face of biological women being able to compete fairly in women's sports, right? Making sure that men aren't allowed in men that want to act like women to be competing in women's sports. So when you do that, it just comes off as disingenuous, or you're a bit naive. Like, why are you attacking the person that's literally the face of it, that's actually advocating for fairness when it comes to women's sports? So it just makes you think like, okay, like if that's what you're doing, then why did you attack? Like, why not just like, maybe, partner up with Riley Gaines, maybe do a collab or something like that, just to fight for the fairness of women's sports. However, you go and attack. So it just makes you think like, hey, what's the agenda? Like what were you trying to do? Right. And then you come up with the apology, maybe because your PR team said, it's probably a good idea that, you retract your statement, what you said, and, clean it up. Right. And for a lot of people, they see that apology as, either written by CHAT-GPT, or of course your PR team got to her, or just something, a statement that doesn't seem genuine. Okay, so a lot of people are just saying, you're dead to me. Like, I don't believe anything that you have to say. And, for a lot of people, just like, they've lost a lot of respect for Simone Biles. And of course, for a topic this controversial, you're going to lose a lot of people when you come with the thought that, biological men should be able to compete in women's sports. You're going to lose a lot of people. And for her, she's lucky that, like I said, she's lucky she didn't have to deal with, men being able to compete in her sport. Right, not that there's probably that many men that can do what she did, especially for that sport where it works to your advantage when you're very small and flexible, and it's not too many men that can be at that position. But like, she didn't have to worry about men being able to compete in her sport, going against men. Right. And for her, someone who's, I think she's married. All right. She has and I don't think she doesn't have any kids yet, but someday she hopes, she plans to have children. And I'm sure if she has a daughter, she would want to make sure her daughter's also protected when it comes to being able to compete in any sport that she's participating in. Right. She doesn't want any man to be just jump in there and just start dominating. Right. And then not give her an opportunity, and then the other girls there the opportunity to to enjoy the competition, a fair competition. So it's just weird that she got to come up with something like that, say something like that, attack someone like Riley Gaines who's advocating for women's sports, and then come with that statement. Because like I said, this is not a complicated issue, right? It's like she said, it's a simple solution, right? Don't allow biological men to compete in women's sports. That's pretty much it, right? Men playing men's sports, women playing women's sports, and that's it. Okay, and it's very simple. Just keep it at that. We don't need to, cater to, other people and say, oh, she feels like no one cares, right? Like, you're a man, you're a biological man. Do your thing over there. Compete against other men, or create another league of, transgenders or whatever. But to say that, you got men out here just dominating women's sports doesn't make sense. We shouldn't allow that, right? Okay. And for someone like Simone Biles, you should know better than that, right? Or maybe you're just doing it because you want to, appease a certain group. You got a lot of people, you got a lot of, groups in your ear saying that you should, say certain things, and you gotta be careful with that, because, right now, like, my advice would be like, like Simone, like, stay out of the politics, right? Stay out of the politics, because I don't know if it's something that you can handle, right? Or if you want to get into politics, make sure you can handle it, because there's a lot of backlash based on your thoughts and opinions. Right? And depending on what side you're on. So if you want to go that route, then cool. Just make sure you can handle the backlash that comes with it, because there's a lot of backlash depending on the sides that you're in, especially in today's time where politics is just running in everything. It's a part of everything that we do. And something as touchy as an issue as allowing men playing in women's sports, you have to be careful with that, because depending on the side you are, you want to make sure you're on the right side of history. And to me, it seems like a common sense issue, just to, allow people, men to play men playing men's sports, women playing women's sports, and just leave it at that. All right. And it's not something that's overly complicated, because it's a different ball game. Okay, we've seen, and it's always, it's always allowing women in men's sport, but you don't see. I mean, it goes one way, right? Men going in women's sports, you don't see women trying to go into the male sports, right? You just don't see that, right? The only thing is when they had that college game where, they I forgot what game was that, but they had a female kicker. I was like, that was stupid. That was a dumb thing. Like, that's the only time I remember that they would try that, and it was dumb. Like, it was a fail. But it's something that we should just obviously separate, because it's just two different beasts, right? So those are my thoughts. Interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure you leave a comment down below, hit the like button, share, and if you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe. So guys, take care, have a good one. Later.